We rescued a sleepy Dogman pup. Dear Scary Stories NYC. My wife Lottie and I once had a young dogman wander onto our property and stay with us for maybe about half a month. I guess that was about how long he lived in our barn. And when he left, he was significantly larger than when he had arrived. This was how we could be certain that it was a young creature, the remarkable rate at which it grew every day during the brief period that we got to be a part of his life. We're both having trouble remembering what year this happened, but once upon a time, my wife and I took in a Dogman pup, and we think a version of what happened to us might be interesting for the viewers of your channel. Now, if this had happened in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, we'd probably be able to give you exact dates and times, but everything from 2002 on blurs together for us. That was the year I turned 62 and retired. Then we bought the house that we still live in. These days we have a live-in nurse with us, but that's only happened in the past 5 years or so. I was probably around 69 or 70 when the Dogman-related events in this story happened, and my wife Lottie would have been about 65-ish. We were both still in pretty decent health and very mobile in those days. So we were senior citizens, but still probably about as active as we had been for most of our adult lives. At that point, all that old age had brought us was a bit of wealth and a lot of free time. It's important that you understand that. If a Dogman boy came to us now, we would not be able to care for him. But we were both still very active and strong when this all took place. We also were city slickers transplanted to the country, and we didn't know what we were doing. You don't take in a young predator. His mother might think you're stealing her offspring and come get you. I think if I had it to do over, I would have immediately notified the authorities. Although I wonder what the authorities would have really been able to do with a captured young Dogman. Would they release him? Where? Would they put him to sleep? I certainly wouldn't know what would happen hypothetically. And it doesn't matter anyhow, because that's not what we did. We let him move into our barn. Lottie says I'm telling the story from the inside out as usual, and that I need to start from the beginning. The beginning for me was Lottie waking me up at dawn and asking me, "Hun, what do bears eat?" I told her, "Bears eat humans. Now let me sleep, woman." Then I heard her mumble that she was going to make him a hamburger. Something about my wife making a hamburger for a bear caused me to wake up quickly and throw on my bathrobe. Lottie was chattering about a bear cub who was scratching at the back door, begging for scraps. I looked out the window, and there he was, Winnie the Pooh, standing at our back door, scratching himself and yawning. He was standing upright, and his fur was a kind of a tan color. Startled, I looked around the area from that second-story window, trying to find the mother. Mama bears don't usually let their young ones wander too far from their sight. Even then, I knew that much. I told Lottie some version of that, and she just laughed at me and told me to go back to bed. That creature was cute, and nothing cute is worth getting upset over, period. My wife Lottie has the world figured out, you see. So I went downstairs, attempting to talk her out of cooking burgers for bears, when I got a better look at the thing standing there half asleep, standing upright, on its hind legs, outside our kitchen door. That wasn't a bear. For one thing, the ears were all wrong. This creature had ears like a wolf. For another, those legs it stood on were far too tall. It had a tail, but not one like a bear might have. I put some instant coffee mix into a cup, poured tap water over it, and began gulping it down, trying to focus my eyes and my brain. It looked like a bear cub mainly because it was standing up. Otherwise, it looked more like a canine, either a wolf or a dog, or a coyote, or something of that nature. I noticed the beast scratching itself, and saw that its paws appeared to have opposable thumbs. Bears have all 5 fingers in a row with no thumb. Dogs don't exactly have fingers at all. I racked my brain trying to remember what kind of an animal had this odd mix of traits, but the only word that kept popping up in my mind was the word werewolf. Now, first of all, I did not believe in werewolves. And second of all, if werewolves were to be considered real, I don't know that there would be little cute baby ones scratching at your back door and yawning. So Lottie did not make him a burger, but she did warm up a big soup bowl full of milk for him. Now, he at first lapped it up in the way a dog or a bear might, down on all fours with his snout in the bowl. Presently, however, the cute little monster plopped backward onto his butt and picked that bowl up with both paws, or hands, or claws, or whatever you want to call them, and he sipped the warm milk from the bowl that way until it was all gone. Then, as we watched, he wandered in a sleepy, somewhat dizzy fashion over to the old barn on the property. There he went inside and presumably took himself a nap. That was the thing about the creature staying with us. We really weren't consulted or asked our opinion. I think if we had objected, the creature would have overruled us anyhow. While it slept in the barn, Lottie and I had a conversation about what was happening. I warned her about the possibility of the mother coming back for the cub. But I think we both knew it wasn't a bear. Lottie had called it a bear earlier, but by this conversation, I think she was already referring to it as a puppy. I might be remembering that incorrectly, but I know she was calling it a puppy before I was. The two of us agreed to avoid the barn until the situation resolved itself. We needed to keep our scent off the animal as much as possible. Otherwise, if it were to reunite with its mother or family, it might get rejected. At least that was my layman's perception of the correct protocol that I learned off PBS. I have no idea if we were being wise or foolish in that sense. I do remember us creeping up on the barn and peering inside, trying to find the location of the young creature without disturbing it. We would leave it food, and I'm not sure if that was a good idea or not. Maybe it should have been practicing its hunting skills while it was growing, not merely subsisting as a scavenger off of our offerings. The trouble was, if we didn't keep it well fed, at what point might it have decided to eat me and Lottie? Speaking of hunting, I suppose it did manage to slip in some of that, now that I think about it. I remember being up in the middle of the night, which became usual for me sometime in my 50s. There was that darkness just before the sun is about to break, and everything was very quiet and peaceful outside. I was standing in our living room downstairs, looking out at the lawn, watching a squirrel. He was up a bit early like myself, collecting seeds or acorns or something from off the lawn. It was one of those scenes where you feel at one with nature and the world. And then, in the next instant, I saw what I thought was a kid in a fur suit run out onto the lawn and grab that squirrel, disappearing into the bushes with him in less time than it took me to describe that to you just now. I screamed. I screamed so loud that I woke Lottie up in our bedroom on the second floor, and I heard her fall out of the bed onto the floor. I had also screamed loud enough that the so-called kid, who had just grabbed that squirrel, poked his head out of the bush he was hiding behind to look back at the house and see if I was okay. Yeah, it was a kid, but it wasn't a human kid. It was that dogman boy who had snatched the squirrel away from his seed-hunting duties. And now he was concerned as to why I was shrieking like that. You know, in many ways, the young dogman became like a pet to us during that brief period. He was an outdoor pet, neither allowed in the house nor interested in entering. He didn't sit at our feet and beg for scraps when we ate, and he didn't sleep inside with us either. We also never gave him a name, and we never gave him food near our house, because we didn't want him to associate eating with our living space. Lottie did leave him various food items out at the barn entrance, though. We had discussed possibly picking up dog food for him, but she would find some kind of leftover or extra meat or cheese in the pantry for him each time, and we never actually gave him Alpo or anything of that nature. He ate what we ate, more or less. He ate the parts that we didn't like, but we still didn't feed him anything cheap. He was a growing boy, after all. Looking back on it, people mostly want to know why we didn't alert anybody to the presence of the creature on our land. Why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do that? We had only moved to this area shortly beforehand, and we were still settling in when this all took place, to be honest. We didn't really feel like neighbors out there for 6 or 7 years. We weren't really sure how things were done in the country, and we sort of wanted to blend in, not call attention to ourselves and our newbie status. Another aspect of it was that we had been planning on having the barn demolished anyway, so we really had no other use for it. If a cute animal that my wife loved wanted to stay there for a while, I wasn't really sure what I could or should do about it. Call an animal wrangler? Or just wait for the beast to get bored and move on? It felt like each morning we'd wake up talking about how crazy it had been that an upright walking canine pup was sleeping out in our barn the day before. But then something would happen to clue us in that he was still out there. Lottie kept better tabs on him than I did, but she kind of kept it on the DL, as she was not sharing all her updates with me. This next part was actually written out for me by my wife in order to explain to you guys some of the interactions she had with the dogman that she never told me about. So this next part was written by Lottie. My husband was quite nervous about this creature and kept choosing to call it a dogman, I think just in order to scare himself further. I don't know what a dogman is, but I know it sounds like a scary thing. This little pup was not scary. Actually, he wasn't so little either, and each day, he grew visibly larger. I had been running around the edge of the property each morning just before dawn in order to start my day with some exercise. The puppy had a delightful habit of running around just behind me, yapping and biting at my heels as I ran. When I would slow down, he would speed me up again. It seemed incredibly cute, and that pup could reduce me to tears. I would be giggling that hard at his antics. Of course, my husband would probably describe the same scene as me behaving like prey, and the dogman playing with his next meal. My husband can be overly literal sometimes, but he is a good provider and an honest man. He just associates dogs who walk on their hind legs with werewolves and monsters. This is a cultural limitation, because his family liked cats instead of dogs. That's what I think. Another aspect of this which I did not want to reveal to my husband in real time was that this pup had not been abandoned by his mother. I just think that the male dogmen set off into a state of semi-adulthood before fully separating from their family unit to create their own family. What I'm trying to say is that I saw the mother, and I saw that pup interact with her. She knew exactly where her pup was, and she could have come gotten him any time she wanted to. Now, if my husband had learned that, he probably would have chained the barn up to keep that dogman pup out, or maybe just had it torn down overnight. There's no way he'd have allowed that cute baby dog to stay if he even heard a rumor about his mom that I had seen lurking around. Come to think of it, the larger one might have been the father or some other male family member, but I just assumed it was the mother because it seemed protective of the puppy. She seemed to care as much for the pup as I did, so I suppose that was why I jumped to the conclusion that she was the matriarch. She very well might have been the father of the pup, I can't tell you for certain. I only saw the larger one from a distance, and it was mainly in silhouette. What I can tell you about it is that it was colored like a grizzly bear, but the body shape was completely wrong for a grizzly bear. It was more like a giant man, a 9 or 10 foot tall man, wearing a skin-tight werewolf costume made by sewing grizzly fur in, one hair at a time. I kept thinking, that's so realistic, which is a silly thing to think. Of course it looked realistic. It was actually real. When you're in the presence of these things, you can both feel empathy toward them as other living beings, as well as not fully accepting that this is something real. It feels like a figure existing in your imagination. And yet, there it is, breathing and eating and sleeping, just the same as you do. How my husband could ever want these beastmen to leave our property, I can't understand. I wished they would stay, and I wished I could be a permanent part of their lives. I knew this was a limited time offer, though, and I just decided to enjoy their presence while it lasted. Well, those are the only parts I didn't share with him in real time. So that's the end of my section of this story. Returning to my husband's narrative in 3, 2, 1. As you can see, my wife claims to value me as a protector. Then she neglects to share information with me when she knows she's placing herself or both of us in danger. It can be very frustrating, especially when you know there's a dogman habituated in your barn. The first week I saw that dogman pup, it was maybe 3.5 or 4 feet tall. I didn't see it again for a couple of days, and the next thing you know, I saw a man racing past the kitchen window one late night at 4 a.m. when I had insomnia. It was a short man, but it was a man. I grabbed a kitchen knife and I ran out the back way, hoping to intercept that would-be burglar before he could find an unlocked window or some other means of breaking in. When I got outside, and I saw it was that dogman pup, but now grown up to being 5 feet tall, or maybe just a little taller, I scooted back inside, about twice as fast as I had run out there. My hair was standing on end over my whole body for a good half hour afterward, too. I mean, yeah, the creature was cute at first, but soon it was going to be taller than me, and I was growing more and more frightened of its increasingly more intimidating profile. Not my wife, though. I found the fact that the creature was still there 2 weeks later to be more than troubling. I was starting to think that we needed to take some kind of grand action. We needed to call in the troops, as it were. I was thinking I needed to call some kind of animal wranglers or maybe a zoo. Something needed to be done. And that morning, instead of going back to bed after my insomnia, I waited up in the kitchen for Lottie. We needed to get that dogman child to move on. It was fraying my nerves. And sooner or later, something terrible was going to happen because of his presence. I knew it. Well, as she poured us both some coffee, and I began to sort out the ideas in my mind, fate took care of the situation for me. "There," said Lottie, pointing out the window. I looked, and for a half second, I saw the young dogman, looking like he might be close to 6 feet tall now, ducking into the woods. I was so amazed that I accidentally fogged the window up, and I was rubbing it clean again, long after that creature was gone. Lottie kept asking me if I'd seen the mother, but I didn't know what that meant exactly. The mother of what? No, I hadn't seen any mother. At any rate, that was the last that either of us saw from the young dogman. Neither of us have seen any upright walking dogmen or bears or Bigfoot or anything of that sort around here since that 1 month in which the young dogman came and stayed with us. I had that barn demolished before the cold weather set in that year, and as far as we know, there haven't been any dogmen in our area again since then. I think they migrate every year though, so I do believe they probably are somewhere around here in the summers. It's just that we no longer have that barn or any other structures or caves that the beasts could use for shelter. We also have very little game passing through on our land anymore, as there isn't enough tree cover compared to the natural areas near us. I just don't think there are enough reasons anymore for the dogman to come visit us, whether young or old. You know, I still wake up from nightmares that Lottie is out feeding the dogman in the barn, and he leaps out of the hayloft, and he feeds on her. I am literally still tense and paranoid about the thing so many years later, even though it turned out fine, and nothing bad happened. My wife seems to have only retained her fond memories of how sweet and cute the young mongrel man was to her. I wish I could put aside my deep-seated fear of the cryptid and just take a little pride that Lottie and I did a good deed for an animal in need. After all, we rescued a sleepy dogman pup. Our EP is Todd Thornton, and that ain't just some corn, son. Please join me in thanking our newest channel member, Todd Thornton, for making this episode possible. Todd joined our channel membership so that he can see our weekly Sunday secret uncensored Dogman stories. Like this most recent one, Dogman burned down our 420 shack. Trust me, we could never tell you that story here. If you want to find out how you can join like Todd T, then listen to the words spoken by this fine young Dogman pup. Oh, Henry. Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that when it cuts off after I think 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.